Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on the Altar of Ultimate Darkness, playing as, once again, the Lizardmen against the force of Clan Angrund. And I know, it's the Lizardmen again. Don't crucify me for it. This is going to be the last Lizardmen video for a bit, but I thought this was a really good game, and I thought it was really worth casting. And so, either way, the build here is actually pretty similar to my last one against Dwarves. But my opponent was built a lot different, and that is really why I kind of want to demonstrate it. Now, I am once again bringing a Slaane's Mage Priest of High Magic into this build. I figured not a bad choice against Angrund, especially because they can bring Ghost Ancestors, so you want some magic damage, and Arcane Forging is a good way to do that. We did bring Shield of the Old Ones, as well as Banishment. We also have Hand of Glory, Apotheosis, Arcane Conduit, and Shield of Sapphire. So, a good selection of fairly cheap spells. Arcane Forging in the worst case scenario. And besides that, not much. He's on his toilet seat. He's not going to be able to fight very well. But with Hand of the Gods, actually, you can give it, or Hand of Glory, sorry, you can give him more melee attack, and with his magic damage, you can actually kind of fight Ghost Ancestors that way as well. Now, alongside him, two Skink Chiefs, the kind of anti-Slayer, anti-Gyrocopter pick, and two units of Chameleon Skinks Vanguard forward. I had not expected my opponent to deploy this far forward. I actually expected the Dwarf player to deploy like down here. Unless he decides to go rush build, in which case I expected here. And instead my opponent decided to deploy awkwardly in this sort of bunkered position. So we do have two Chameleon Skinks there. And then for our main line, 4 units of Temple Guards, the sort of standard. 2 units of Saurus on either end, and then a single unit of Skinks on either end of that. So giving us lots of width, able to outmaneuver and hopefully crush our opponent with some good old flexibility and just numbers. Now for my opponent here, he does have a very strong, commanding sort of bunkered position here. For his lord, he is rolling with Belegar, who is somewhere over here, coming in with the mighty Oathstone. He does also have the Hammer of Angrund. He's got Rally. As well as Revenge Incarnate, so a whole bunch of crazy buffs. And he is backed by, well, a bit of a mixed bag of troops. Now, he's got a unit of cannons, or 2 units of cannons, in fact, who are teeing off my infantry almost immediately. He also does have 2 units of Thunderers for shooting. Thane is on the flank here, probably as a bit of a support tool just to help keep his troops in the line and break up charges. And he is backing a single unit of Hammerers, as well as 2 units of Iron Breakers, in fact. So the Iron Breakers, nasty tool. They're very tough for me to crack, and this is one of the sort of builds I was really worried about with the Temple Guard, is trying to crack Iron Breakers. And we'll definitely see how that works out here, if we're even going to be able to bust through Iron Breakers, because their melee defense is just nuts. And Temple Guard, obviously pretty tanky in their own right, but definitely their armor will eventually sort of give way, and I feel like the Iron Breakers' melee defense will be a huge edge. Finally, Giant Slayers and Slayers on this flank over here, and these guys are just going to be zoning me away or trying to do so. So you can see immediately the Chameleon Skinks are going to pivot around, looking to get into the flank. Over here, the Saurus Warriors are taking quite a bit of hatred, as did these Skink cohorts, and now my opponent is shifting fire onto the Temple Guard and unloading on us with his Thunders. It's just so much fire pouring in, really hurting these guys, and really being quite menacing. And unfortunately, the push here is definitely a little bit haggard. Perhaps I should have pivoted and been a little more patient, done my pivoting behind the line, the ridge there, but I did not, and so you can see my opponent getting some pretty nasty fire there. In the meantime, though, the Chameleon Skinks are trying to sneak around and get shots into the Slayers, because of course that is the optimal target to whittle down. Unfortunately, these Temple Guard over here are going to, by the time they get into combat, they are already under half or at about half HP, and having lost about a third of their models. So definitely some brutal stuff there. And now they're going to have to charge into these blasting charges, into these Iron Breakers, these Dwarf Warriors, and things are going to be really grim for them. That said, on this flank, things are definitely a little worse for my opponent, because he's basically just got Dwarf Warriors and Slayers. Sure, this unit of Hammers is going to be tough, but probably not that amazing, and we might be able to push through them. I'm not entirely sure who actually wins in a fight of Temple Guard against Hammers, something I've never actually tested. That said, my opponent does have his Thane here, who is looking to get an intercept on the Temple Guard, breaking my charge, disrupting me, and then now the Hammers are going to come in and get their own charge, which is going to be pretty nasty. They do have 18 charge bonus, which is not bad by any means. You can see my shield going down over here, trying to keep these Temple Guards protected, and a Banishment is going to rampage through these Iron Breakers, beating them up a little bit before dissipating into nothingness. Now, Apotheosis is helping keep these Temple Guard in the fray, and you can see they're doing a little bit of damage to these Iron Breakers, but certainly not enough to earn their keep. Over here, these Saurus Warriors actually got intercepted by Belegar and then nuked by Iron Breaker charges, which is just disgusting. We basically lost this entire unit for no gain. Over here, the Dwarf Warriors definitely getting mauled pretty bad. And on the flank, we are starting to pivot in and get in on my opponent's flank. You can see the Chameleon Skinks here disrupting and distracting the Giant Slayers, just able to sort of pepper them down. And these Saurus and Skinks are now going to be able to start pouring into this flank, and that is definitely going to be a big advantage for us. Dwarf Warriors against Temple Guard, going to be a pretty one-sided affair, definitely very much favorable to the Temple Guard. Over here, though, with that charge bonus broken, the Temple Guard and the Thane in there soaking up quite a bit of damage. These Temple Guard are actually getting dumpstered by the hammers, so that was definitely shocking and definitely a huge misplay on my part. Probably should have demonstrated a bit more patience. Unfortunately, Belegar here has kind of chased off my Saurus, and you can see these these Ironbreakers are now going to be able to start pivoting inward, and these Thunders are going to be able to start shifting fire. So balance of power actually sliding a bit out of my favor, which is definitely unfortunate. That said, these Saurus over here winning against these Dwarf Warriors, slowly but surely whittling them down. Saurus will trash most lower end Dwarf troops, so it's definitely one advantage you have. Over here, the Skinks intercept the Slayers, and with the help of some Blow Darts, are going to start whittling them out pretty effectively. In the meantime, these Skink Chiefs over here are running amok, popping some shots, and over here the Ironbreakers do intercept the Saurus, and that's going to be a bit of an issue for us. The cannons, in the meantime, teeing off on the poor Slaane's Mage Priest, trying to whittle him down. But these Temple Guard here having a pretty good time of it. And you can see, as fights degenerate into protracted melee, the Temple Guard actually are holding up fairly well. Here we hit him with Apotheosis. The Ironbreakers have only got 6 kills to the 17 of Temple Guard. And keep in mind, the Temple Guard fighting Ironbreakers. They're definitely earning their keep here. The Thunders unloading on the Saurus, definitely not what we want, but not much we can do about it. And over here, the Giant Slayers do actually get intercepted by the Saurus, which should be an advantage for us. Over here, in the meantime, the Chameleon Skinks are going to dive in on the cannon crew, looking to shut them down, while this cannon crew over here kind of getting shut down by rampaging Saurus. So definitely we are able to bog my opponent down. Over here, the Temple Guard is slowly but surely winning against the Dwarf Warriors. Hand of Glory helping them out, making them just that bit more efficient. While our fat boy over here is providing additional support. Now, unfortunately, my Skinks over here overextended, pursuing a unit. I'm not even entirely sure what. You can see they actually got an extra bunch of chevrons there, I think. So I'm not entirely sure what they were doing, and I lost track of them. And so now they're way out there, full health, doing nothing. That said, over here, Temple Guard is about to get flanked and spanked, which is going to be really rough. These hammers are just charging in. We do hit them with an Apotheosis, though, keeping them in the fight, and they are slugging out with these Ironbreakers pretty efficiently. While these boys over here are tearing apart these Dwarf Warriors pretty effectively as well. The Chameleon Skinks, in the meantime, tearing up the artillery crews. You can see these Dwarf Warriors completely routed. Saurus over here overextending a bit, chasing after these Thunders. But because my opponent blobbed up here, we are actually going to be able to get a nice little banishment and potentially wipe out some of these Dwarven troops. And this is definitely not what you want happening to you as the Dwarves. And unfortunately, the Temple Guard here is going to take some heat. But, you know, they took one for the team, and these Ironbreakers are getting completely shreked. Elsewhere, in the meantime, these Saurus are still rampaging, tying down these Ironbreakers. The main point is just buying time. You can see these Ironbreakers actually not doing too hot against the Temple Guard in this protracted melee. And we were really able to sort of bog them down. And despite the fact that these guys dropped about half health before ever hitting the line, they actually did a lot of damage there. That said, the Slaane's Mage Priest really badly beaten up, and my opponent is able to sort of zone off a lot of my troops. Buy a lot of time, and unfortunately the Slaane's Mage Priest is wavering on the edge of annihilation, very, very close to death, and just barely trying to scrape away here with the last edge of his HP. And you can see there his drops below 400 HP. We hit him with a cold-blooded to keep him in the fight, and so yeah, things are looking a bit grim. That said, the Saurus with the Hand of Glory here crushing the Giant Slayers. Temple Guard are destroying the very annoying Thane. And in the meantime, the Skink Chiefs here are chipping away. They're able to get some good pot shots in on these hammers, whittling down those high-value targets, which is just so very important. While these Chameleon Skinks over here, shrugging off the Ironbreakers, shrugging off Belegar, getting into the fight, getting in on these Thunders, and bogging them down. So this is very important, tying down the shooting and preventing it from doing too much damage. Unfortunately, there are still quite a few Ironbreakers on the field. 2 units, very badly mauled units, but still 2 units. And that's definitely rough. The Slayers over here reduced almost nothingness. We do with these Temple Guard with an Apotheosis. But these Thunders still very healthy, still most of their models alive, and they're still got a lot of ammo. So things could look very, very bad. In the meantime, though, at least the artillery is offline for most part. The Chameleon Skinks have managed to wipe out these cannons over here for most part. They're going to be able to mop up these cannons as well. Now, Chameleon Skinks not great in combat. If we look at their on-paper stats, but do keep in mind they do apply poison, which means that despite these stats looking pretty trash, they can definitely do a better job in melee than one would anticipate because they debuff their enemies. That said, the Thunder is just crossfiring our Saurus here. Belegar, an absolute champion of the people. And unfortunately, it's very difficult for my Skinks Chiefs to stay in the fight here and do damage to these Thunders in a protracted fight, as these Ironbreakers are going to zone them away. That said, we do remove the Thane from play here. The hammers are broken. And the Slayers here are in really bad shape. So my opponent not looking too healthy right now. And the bounce of power about dead even, which is pretty crazy. Definitely pretty nuts. You can see the Ironbreakers now did pursue the Chameleon Skinks, who just eradicated their shooting brethren. But now they're finding themselves under a crossfire. The Skinks shooting them in the back. The Skinks over here will be able to shoot them potentially from the front. And these Saurus and Temple Guard are doing their very best to push through, get in on these Thunders, and start doing some damage in close quarters combat, because that is just so very important to shut this shooting down, get these Thunders offline, because these Thunders have been doing way too much work throughout this game. And honestly, they were probably my opponent's MVPs. Now, the Iron Breakers and all those units, huge nuisance, of course, very powerful. But had these Temple Guard, or had I been able to shut down these Thunders earlier, it would not be as much of an issue. These last Temple Guard on their last legs, 5 models left. But these Temple Guard kind of getting in there, able to shut these Thunders down a little bit before my opponent intercepts with the Iron Breakers. So definitely some rough stuff. We do hit these boys with an Apotheosis, trying to keep them in the fight. But with all this pressure, the Slayers on their on their rear, and Bellegarde in there, things are definitely looking a little rough. And he's actually finally popped Revenge Incarnate. Didn't use it until this stage of the game. And that is something going to make these Temple Guards suffer a lot, because they're under crossfire from 2 units of Thunders. They're being beaten down by Bellegarde. And all this shooting, there's so much stuff disrupting them. It's really rough stuff. We do manage to remove the Thane from play, though, which is a big win. And in the meantime, the Skink Chiefs here working on the Iron Breakers, trying to whittle them down as the Iron Breakers work on the last few units of Temple Guard. So definitely, it's just been such an intense back and forth game. Over here, the Thunders kind of getting torn apart by the Chameleon Skinks in close quarters, as we do try to top our boys off with an Apotheosis, just trying to keep them in the fight as long as possible. Slayers down to 3 models, and it's just getting destroyed down to their last legs here in the pits. Slayers actually get taken down. Saurus are in there. The Thunders are just getting shredded from all sides, getting shanked in the back by these Chameleon Skinks, getting slashed from the front by big lizards, and it's just craziness right now. But unfortunately, these Thunders over here still online, despite the 2 Temple Guard or 3 Temple Guard hitting them from behind, trying to dispatch them. These Temple Guard, true champions of the people, down to 93 HP, just really taking one for the team here and doing their very best, and actually doing quite a bit of work against these Thunders who are just ignoring them. Temple Guard, definitely no pushovers. Anytime I read the Skink Chiefs forced to back off, whittling down these Iron Breakers as they run, and unfortunately my opponent here, despite my best efforts, does manage to shoo off both my Temple Guard and my Saurus, so definitely things looking a little grim, but it's not game over yet. I finally noticed this unit of Skinks, and honestly, these guys could have been a huge game changer. A bit earlier in the game, they could have shut down these Thunders, and it would have been a huge difference for my against my opponent, but unfortunately I did not do that, so now they're finally coming into the fray very late, very little, very late. That said, Thunder is being broken up here. The Chameleon Skinks just staying in the fight there as best they can, trying to whittle them down, diving into melee. Over here, the last 3 Temple Guard, the champions of the people, down to their last legs, are shattered. I can't blame them at this point. They've just done so well, down to their last 2 models. The last boy there, wandering off. Perhaps he will become the next Croc Guard, you never know. And in the meantime, the Iron Breakers there, torn apart by Skink Chief fire, so definitely a little bit of a win there. Over here, Thunders being pursued off the field by the Chameleon Skinks, which is very, very important right now. And in the meantime, we are trying to reform ranks and look for a final showdown. You can see balance of power about dead even, probably because my Chameleon Skinks are so healthy. But definitely, it's going to be a little bit of Benny Hill action here as we reform ranks and look for a final sort of epic ink showdown. And you can see my opponent here, we actually managed to get a bit of an intercept here with the Skink cohort, getting in on the Iron Breakers, bogging them down, while the Temple Guard does try to squeeze past, getting on the Thunders with the Skink Chiefs. So definitely a bit of important engagement here. Temple Guard still has 12 models, which is significant. 12 models is, of course, not an amazing number, but it's something. And they can definitely cut down these Thunders a bit, cut them down to size, and they're doing so. Another shield goes down, and the Iron Breakers break, which is very important. We've got the speed advantage. We can chase them off the field, and suddenly things are looking a lot better. Now, bit of a misplay, though, on my part here. What I should have done here is detached the Skinks, dealt with these Thunders, and in the meantime, taken the Temple Guard to chase these boys off, or perhaps detach them to fight Bellegarde. I do not do that, and so Bellegarde is actually still going to be very healthy here. He's down to 2,500 HP, but balance of power still almost dead even, because Bellegarde is just so stupidly good. Thunders, having expended almost all of their ammo, are actually really dealing with the Temple Guard here, who we hit with a Hand of Glory, trying to keep them in the fight. But things definitely not looking too hot. You can see Bellegarde, 2,500 HP. Now we're going to start trying to pop them in the face with our Skink blow darts. But unfortunately, surrounded like this by friendly units, it's going to be very difficult to get shots in. Occasionally a shot does sneak in there, but a lot of them are actually doing friendly fire, which is not what we want. For sure. Now the Temple Guard here down to 7 models. They'll actually be able to put a dent in Bellegarde, certainly. He's got 120 armor and 55 melee defense, but especially if we can get some Hand of Glory in there, they can definitely do some work. Bellegarde getting chipped down slowly but surely. He's definitely doing something with those silly runes hanging above his head. He's definitely doing some hurt to these Temple Guard, but hey, they're brave lads. They're champions of the people here, and they're doing their very best that they can. But still, despite this, the balance of power, the hanging on the verge of still could be if it was my opponent could still pull it back depending on how things work out here. Bellegarde, of course, an absolute beast in melee against sort of squishy troops, which is all I've really got left at this point. The Skinks, of course, can come back now. Potentially we still have a few skin cores here. But what we're going to try to do is do as much damage to Belegar as we can. You can see trying to close the distance. Basically getting right up in his face so that you can't miss with the blow darts. That we're still getting obstructed. You can see there the boy reloads and pops Belegar right in the face with that poison dart. But unfortunately at this point I'm basically out of troops. The Temple Guard down to their last legs, last 2 models, last 7 models for Zasaurus. And Belegar will be able to tank through that. He'll be able to deal with it. Now he is still getting blow darted in the face, which is really nice for me. But yeah, that's going to be it. You can see the Saurus there shatter on their last 2 models. The Temple Guard here on literally the last model who actually goes down, gets cut down by the Dwarf Lord of Carrick 8 Peaks, and now he's in with a vengeance going after the Skink Chiefs. But, you know, it's not endgame just yet. There's going to be a bit of Benny Hill action, because at this point, I was a little frustrated with the way my opponent had played there, this kind of campiness, and I decided, you know what, we're going to use up all of our ammo here and try to bring Belegar down to size. So we split and run, and you can see the fire coming in from the darts, and it's going to be a lot of Benny Hill action right now. Belegar down, very low on HP. If I try to engage him right now in melee, it is likely that I will lose. So we are going to try to whittle him down, get all of our darts off. Now this King Chief almost dies. We hit him with a cold-blooded last second, keeping him in the fray. And Belegar, sadly enough, we're actually whiffing on Belegar quite a bit. So that's definitely a little unfortunate. You can see those blow darts pouring in on the poor guy. These skinks over here also coming in. And I'm just trying to get every last shot into this guy before I have to close for melee. Because I might have a chance with the skinks and with a Hand of Glory maybe and with the Skink Chiefs in there. But if I can avoid it, I don't want to fight Belegar in a melee. So you can see here we are whittling him down as much as we can, trying to break that leadership beforehand. And finally, he is going to shatter. So the last few darts pouring in, and the Warlord of 8 Peaks, or not the Warlord, the King of 8 Peaks, is forced to flee. So a very tight, very close, right down to the wire match of Lizardmen against Dwarves. And I think it really shows some of the difficulties you can have with Lizards. Now, in hindsight, huge misplay on my part. If I had gotten those skinks in the fight much sooner, I could have shut down those thunders much more easily, while the Temple Guard dealt with less pressing matter, or less important units like the Iron Breakers and the sort of fighting portion of my opponent's army, the melee portion. But I didn't, so that actually cost me quite a lot in the endgame. That said, the build I think still held up relatively well. We didn't have many crazy banishments, to be honest. We did some damage to the Iron Breakers and some damage to the Hammers for sure, but despite that, we were able to tear through those Iron Breakers over time. I think the combination Temple Guard, really solid unit. Their AP values, high melee attack speed, and respectable stats and good HP just makes them such a beastly unit in this matchup. Definitely a lot of misplay on my part as far as shutting down the enemy artillery goes. I could have definitely done much more work with my light skirmishers, sort of flanked around my opponent early on, and tried to have been smarter that way, and I just did not. But regardless, for my bonus build, definitely an interesting take. Obviously, being able to camp up against that rock helped a lot there, because it essentially sealed off a flank where I would have normally been able to pressure him much more heavily. That's kind of what you just got to deal with dwarves. That's just the reality of the situation. But nonetheless, I think it's a fairly solid build. Definitely a little narrow. I think that on a different map, or if you deployed differently on that map, this build would not hold up anywhere near as well, because you wouldn't be able to cover as much with as little. Here my opponent was really favored, I think, by the terrain with that rock in the way. But regardless, well played to Pericula here. I definitely had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and good watch. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, do not hesitate to post them, and I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.